CarlFrisch.com. Oh, hi. Good morning, Karl Frisch.
Good morning.
Okay. Well, I read your tweets about, that obviously you have to, as a school board, as a school system, you have to talk to kids about gun violence all the time. You got to, and it's just, I don't know if this time is different, but I just am saying, like, tiny painted coffins with, cartoon characters on them. If that doesn't somehow break through the haze, I don't know what will.
I think people are tired of waiting, and, in the absence of action, I think we need to start looking where else we can get action done. And I think every level of government has a role to play here. If folks aren't contacting their school boards right now to ask them, what are you doing about this? What are you doing to make sure our buildings are safe? What are you doing to make sure that students are taught about gun violence prevention? What are you doing to inform parents about their legal obligations to securely store firearms? 70% plus of the guns used in school shootings come from the home. Mm-hmm. So, making sure that parents are aware of the law around securely storing their firearms is extremely important because a lot of people do not securely store their firearms.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many pieces of it that would help, at least, and believe me, I'm all for getting really significant gun legislation done, but as you and I both know from our years in the political trenches, that's not going to happen right now. But we could get pieces of it done. Let's take advantage of them, be scared enough about the midterms, and then get enough people in, that we can make real change, right?
Right. Send reinforcements, get what you can get done at the local and state level, if you can get things done there, and continue to press for change in Washington.
Yeah.
They can make progress in Washington. Again, it won't be everything we want, but that's why November is so important, right? It's get what we can now and push for more in the new Congress.
Yeah. I mean, just for me to get my head around, Chris Murphy saying there's been 20 mass shootings since Uvalde. I mean, this is what we always worry about is copycats. And I swear to God that you feel like you're waking up in Fallujah some mornings. You're just like, okay, what's the body count? What's the carnage yesterday? Just yesterday, 3.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm not surprised anymore. I'm grateful that I'm still angry because, I think it's a natural human reaction for people to get numb to something like this. Both the trauma of hearing about a shooting or being in the proximity of a shooting and then seeing nothing really done about it. I think it's natural to become numb.
Yeah.
But, we've got to hold on to that anger and turn it into action. We've got to channel it for good, or else all of the people that we're losing to gun violence are dying in vain.
And Karl, I think, as I always say, it's all one story, isn't it? As we get ready to go into the January 6th hearings, June 9th next week, this was about the violent overthrow of the United States government. And, who is this guy? This is the GOP dirty trickster in Michigan. Even the terms they use, what they're trying to do, it's an army. They're building an army. Let's listen.
Truly, it's going to be an army, right? We are going to try to recruit lawyers. We're going to have more lawyers than have ever been recruited because, let's be honest, that's where it's going to be fought, right? We're going to have lawyers that work early to build relationships with different judges so that when that happens, we're going to have lawyers that have relationships with the police chiefs in the different areas, with the police officers in the different areas, so that when that happens, those pre-existing relationships are already established.
Is that not voter suppression that he's talking about? Right?
Of course it is.
Yes.
I mean, when they talk about lawyers, they're not talking about making sure that there are no obstacles for registered voters to cast their ballots. They're talking about putting up obstacles to keep people from casting their ballots. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Speaking of January 6th, let me get your take on what's most significant as we go into this. Pennsylvania, it's like, these are not fringe people. He's running for governor of Pennsylvania, Mastriano. So he had to turn over evidence to the House Select Committee, including documents showing his arrangement for buses carrying Trump supporters to Washington on January 6th. Michael Luttig, a former federal judge and lawyer who advised Mike Pence, is expected to testify before the January 6th committee. He is a judge, as you probably know, Karl, that is lionized within the conservative legal movement. He wrote a piece. I mean, thank God for this is the only thing that saved our democracy is the few patriots, whether be they on the right or the left, right? He said January 6th was never about a stolen election or even about actual voting fraud. It was always and only about an election that Trump lost fair and square under legislatively promulgated election rules in a handful of swing states that he and other Republicans contend were unlawfully changed. He warns that Trump's efforts to decertify elections remain a threat to democracy. Trump and his allies and supporters in Congress and the states began readying their failed 2020 plan to overturn the 2024 presidential election later that very same day, and they have been unabashedly readying that plan ever since in plain view to the American public.
The only thing he missed,
yeah, go ahead,
is that we saw this coming before 2020. That's the only thing he missed.
Right. But this is what I
predicted.
mean. We're watching. Is it even a slow-moving coup anymore? I mean, it is ongoing. And that's why there has got to be consequences for January 6th. Because, and again, this is a conservative judge or lawyer, whatever he is,
right,
that's warning. This is the one that had to say to Pence, no, you can't do that. You don't have the power, Yeah,
and I mean, there's a world of difference between a conservative judge and a Trumpist judge, right?
Yeah.
So those things are heartening, and they certainly send a clear message, in a way that's different than what a liberal judge might send. But the only way that this is going to be stopped is by people turning out and voting in large numbers. It's very hard to stop the will of the voter when it is not a close election. When it's a close election, as so many elections have been in recent history, all of the little things count. I'm
sorry, I'm laughing because even in a really huge election, like the numbers that Brian Kemp beat Trump's candidate Perdue by,
right,
they scream fraud. It's just whenever Trump doesn't win or Trump's candidate doesn't win, obviously there was fraud. So 74% to 20-something percent, that obviously was rigged. Yes, I mean,
what's absolutely bonkers about it, and I wish media would do this more, is ask the candidate accusing fraud, release your internal polling.
Yeah.
Release your internal polling, because I guarantee you they're not seeing something different.
Yeah.
They're seeing similar numbers.
Yeah.
And they're just lying because they can't accept losing, the psychic damage it does to the ego of losing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one last January 6th, they publicly released this long-hidden memo that, a federal judge previously determined that evidence of likely felonies by Donald Trump and attorney John Eastman of the, coup memo. Yeah. It's a December 13th, 2020 email from little-known attorney who had been advising Trump's legal team, Kenneth Chesborough. That's new. He's new.
Yeah.
He sent it to Rudy Giuliani, sketching out a plan for Mike Pence to halt the certification of Biden's victory. He dubbed it the President of the Senate strategy. The judge wrote, in his opinion, this memo likely furthered the crimes of obstruction of an official proceeding and conspiracy to defraud the United States. He ordered it released to the Select Committee under the crime fraud exception to the attorney-client privilege. I don't want to get all happy-clappy, Carl. But enough of my legal lads and ladies I've seen all over TV saying, that there are certain things you need legally to prove this or that. And it's all here. Like, you don't need, to prove like intent for violence or this or that. Just this is obstruction of justice of an official proceeding. What are you expecting from next week?
Oh, gosh. I'm expecting to hear more than we currently know.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's going to be impressive. I think that'll have a profound impact. And I hope that witnesses are not allowed to completely filibuster during their time, and that they have strategized ways to deal with that, because that's a real concern for a lot of people.
Yeah. Carl, before you go, just in your unique position on the school board, I know that Eric Swalwell said, I find myself having to lie to my kids. I mean, what do you say to kids? I mean, that's why this story was so heartbreaking, that this little Amory who was killed was the one comforting everybody else, saying it'll be okay. Yeah. And that is our human, and I'm sure as a parent, that's your human, that's your motivation, is to make your kid feel safe, and it's going to be okay. And that's what parents do, right? But I mean, if you're being honest, you'd have to say, statistically, honey, odds are about even, but good luck today. I mean, what do we say to have an honest conversation with our kids, and but also try to reassure them?
Well, you need to be age appropriate with them, obviously.
Yeah.
But look, it is on everybody to push these politicians who are standing in the way to make these conversations honest. I don't think a parent needs to tell a child that there's a risk about them being the victim of gun violence. But in schools across the country, kids are being prepared for what happens if. But I think everybody, parents included, owes it to every child in this country to have honest conversations with the political leaders who represent them, and to turn them out if they won't do anything about it. Make those conversations honest with the political leadership.
We were just talking about that's when you feel old, but we had fire drills. I mean, that was it. We didn't
earthquake
have
drills.
Right.
Oh yeah.
I didn't grow up in California.
No, we had smog days in California.
I didn't grow up in California.
Those. Yeah.
But I actually think I'm not lying when I say I'm too young for the drills where you get under your desk because of a nuclear bomb. I think I was.
And this is.
But I mean, that was kind of funny. Yes, your desk will protect you from a nuke.
Yeah. I've heard stories of little kids who hold it in and don't go to the restroom during the day because they're afraid of being separate from their classes if they go into a restroom to use the restroom and there's an incident, because you're supposed to stay where you are.
Yeah,
and they don't want to be away from everybody.
That seems normal. Yeah, that's the price of freedom there. Okay. Oh my gosh. Well, Karl, thank you for this is what we say, by the way, as midterms are coming up, is every level counts, and you put your money where your mouth is, and there you are on the school board, and so every election counts, every state, local, and national office counts. So thank you, honey. Good to talk to you. All right. There he goes.